Chapter 4. Ramar enjoyed his days with Dove and Lydia, and together they explored the world in between from one end to the other. The meadows and the mountains and the sands along the sea. They went everywhere as three who were one. And for Ramar especially, every day held something new to experience and learn. From the tickle of a caterpillar crawling along his nose to tracking through the mud by the edge of the river. "Is Earth the same as the world is here?" he would ask, and Dove and Lydia assured him it was. "Well, except for the people," they would tell him. "But you will see that for yourself someday when you are ready to be a person." Ramar thought often of the time he would do the journey to Earth and what kind of person he might become. "Does everybody get to choose who they will be before they're born?" he asked, and Lydia assured him again and again that they do. "Every spirit finds the child of its heart," she explained, "and when the search is done, they become that child as soon as it takes a breath." Ramar liked that idea. It must be wonderful to be born, he said, and Lydia and Dove agreed that it was. Then Lydia would turn to Ramar, and with that motherly look he had seen so many times, she would remind him that every life is a time of learning and a time to treasure, but it is the learning that matters most. "And learning to love," would echo Dove, and Lydia would laugh and agree. It could be love that matters most of all, she would concede at times, but in her heart she knew that there would be no difference, that love and learning are equal in their power to help us grow. She knew as well that nearly everything in life is a balance between one thing and another. An ancient friend had told her, some eons ago, to remember a simple truth that he had learned through his many lives, and he had penned it on a piece of parchment to help her remember. When she read it, she found a short and mysterious lesson. All it said was, "The fish have flowers in them." When she asked the meaning, her old friend touched her hand with his and told her that, just as a fish is food for the body, flowers are food for the soul. "Your soul gets hungry too," he said, "just as your body does. You can fill it with friendship, you can fill it with laughter and music, and with the beauty you see in the world, and there will always be room for more." Lydia had kept this lesson in her heart from that time on, and had passed it along to others as they crossed her lives. Now she explained it to Ramar and Dove the best that she could. "You will learn when you become a person," she said to Ramar, "that balance is what you grow by. You need to care for your body and your spirit both, though one is visible and one is not, and the same is true of the way you think and feel. If you think without feeling," she continued, "you will always have much to learn. And if you feel without thinking, you will lose the power that reason gives you and the knowledge to change yourself and the world. Knowledge expands your choices," she said, "as nothing else can." Ramar was beginning to understand. In life there are things that your mind must search and answer, and others that your heart must feel and know. The question was how he would know the difference. Lydia said maybe Dove could explain. And, flattered at the thought, the little bird folded his wings behind him and paced back and forth a bit, as thinkers are known to do. Finally, he paused and cleared his throat and said with a hesitant voice, "Ahem, I guess I don't know exactly." And Lydia chuckled softly to herself because she knew he would say that. He was not known for speaking out. "Well, what do you think?" she asked him. "Just tell us your opinion." Dove pondered again, a little bit longer this time, then ventured his conclusion. "I think we should think with our hearts," he said, "in whatever we hope to learn. Precisely, answered Lydia. That was not so difficult, was it? The little bird beamed with pride, for he had never been praised for his wisdom. It was his faith that he was known for, faith that he could one day grow teeth, and that was a dubious honor at best. Ramar believed him, however, and Lydia, well, she never laughed or said it could not be. She believed that every possibility deserved a hearing, even those her logic told her could never happen. So her mind and heart were always open. The thing to be careful of, she cautioned her friends, is that you do not live your life by what others think or believe unless you believe it too. The choice is always yours, and no one can take that away except for yourself. She pointed at a cluster of palm trees to help reference her lesson. Look over there, she said, and you will see the Reverend Smith, and right behind him is Father Christopher, I believe, and over there, to the left, is the good Parson Goodbody. Each is a splendid example of what I mean. Ramar looked across the trees to where Lydia had pointed, and what he saw surprised him. There, in the heat of the steamy jungle, was a trio of noisy penguins. They were running and moaning and chattering to themselves. They had looked so out of place, he thought. 3 little creatures in their formal clothes, confused and frightened, and sweating profusely. He wanted to help them somehow, but afraid himself, he backed away, slowly and closer to Lydia. On earth they were called men of the cloth, Lydia explained, and they devoted themselves to God and to saving the souls of others. Ramar was puzzled, and he looked at her quizzically. Then why are they so frightened? He asked. Did they hurt people or do something bad? Well, not intentionally, Lydia replied. The truth is they tried very hard to do something good and help those around them to grow. What they did not understand was that you cannot frighten people into thinking your way. They must always be free to choose and learn and believe for themselves. That sounded easy enough to Ramar, but Lydia assured him it was not. It was a difficult lesson for each of us to learn, she told him, but it may be the hardest for all those in the church, like Reverend Smith and Parson Goodbody. Why is that? Asked Ramar. Lydia thought for a moment and could not find an answer that Ramar might understand. Finally, she suggested he talk with the penguins and learn for himself. And that is what he did. Good morning, Reverend Smith, he said, introducing himself, and the penguin replied, Good morning, and so did Father Christopher and Parson Goodbody, though each was nervous and out of sorts. It's a little warm today, isn't it? Said Ramar. And the perspiring penguins agreed that it was. Actually, it's very hot, they replied. Could you tell us where we are? Ramar had told them that they had come to the world in between to think about their most recent lives and what they learned from their journeys on earth. Do you mean we have died? They asked. And this is heaven? No, said Ramar. This is not heaven. Then is it hell? They asked, perspiring more freely. No, answered Ramar. I do not know where those places are. Not here, I am sure. Lydia interrupted. I am afraid there is no hell, she told them, because none of us are punished for how we live or what we think or even what we do. Of course there is a hell, the penguins replied as one. We need to pay for the sins that we commit. Everybody knows that. Yes, but how do we know? Asked Lydia quietly. It is in the scriptures, they replied. All of us must follow the word of God or face the fire when we die. We have no other choices. Lydia listened and smiled with understanding. Then let me ask which is better, she said, to follow something because you believe it is right or because you think that you will be punished if you do not. The penguins talked amongst themselves for a moment, and then Father Christopher said, When you let people decide what is right for themselves, they may not choose correctly. It is better they know what can happen when a path is wrongly taken. Reverend Smith and Parson Goodbody nodded in agreement. It is true, they said. God has a plan for everyone, and His will must be honored, always. He blesses those who follow His word, and punishes those who do not. Ramar had never been told about one of the penguins called God, and asked if he could meet him. The penguins told him that no person had ever met God, because no one was worthy enough. Not one of us are, they said. He is holy and divine, said Father Christopher. He is creator of us all, said Reverend Smith. He is love, said Parson Goodbody. He does not sound like love, ventured Ramar. Love does not punish people, does it? Or make them afraid to think for themselves? God would not do that, would He? Just then, as Ramar spoke, a tremor of purple shivered briefly through his wings. It happened in just an instant, but Dove saw it, and Lydia saw it, and so did the penguins. And Ramar, though he had not seen it himself, felt the warmth of its light on his shoulders before it was gone. All the creatures looked at each other, and even Lydia was puzzled because she had never known anything like it, not in all her lives or wisdom. It must have something to do with why you're here, she said to Ramar. A secret that will make itself known when it thinks you are ready. It could be a sign of God, said the Reverend Smith. Or from Satan, said Parson Goodbody. I think it was just the heat playing tricks on our eyes, said Father Christopher, though only 3 of us were sweating. I am not warm, said Dove. Nor I, said Lydia. We are all very comfortable here. She understood why the penguins were sweating now, and as they left them behind that evening, still pacing in the palms, she explained the reason to Ramar and Dove. The penguins, she told them, now suffer the fate they promised others because their promise was made in error. Your soul cannot be punished, ever, on this side of life or the other. You either grow or not through the choices you make and what those choices teach you. Ramar felt a pity for the penguins all the same, because he knew how unhappy they were. Are not the penguins being punished? He asked, because it looked so to him. No, it only seems that they are, Lydia answered. The truth is that whatever we give to others, we also give to ourselves. If we give love to those around us, it comes back to us multiplied. And if we do harm to others, then it comes back to us as well, and many times over. What happened to the penguins is that as men of the church, the harm they did overwhelmed the good sometimes. In spite of their best intentions, they taught people how to feel guilty and unworthy, and this gave them sorrow and kept them from growing. They even described God as a tyrant father who demands to be worshipped and who threatens punishment for those who disobey him. And this made them afraid instead of loving. Then it is wrong to listen to what those of the church may tell me? Asked Ramar. No, it is not wrong at all, Lydia replied. A seed of truth exists in every church and every religion, and when those who follow that church return to the seed from which it grew, they will find its meaning again, and that is good. Ramar thought about that for a moment, but did not understand. If I one day listen to the fathers of the church, he asked, how will I tell which is the closest to the truth? The one closest to the truth, answered Lydia, will be the one who helps you feel the closest to God and how you come to see him. Is God not the same to everyone? Asked Ramar. In a way he is, said Lydia. To some he is God, to some he is Allah, and to others, well, many just see him as everything that is. There is no one name that matters unless you think it does. Ramar did not understand completely, but he knew that someday he would, and he looked to Dove for reassurance. "Do not worry yourself, my serious friend," said the dove from above. "Your heart will take you where you need to go. You need only to follow and listen." "And have faith?" Ramar smiled. "And have faith," echoed the dove, "but especially in yourself."